เจริญพรทุกคน
Good morning, everyone.
เมื่อปีก่อนหลวงพ่อก็ไปมาเลเซียมานะ
Last year, I was in Malaysia to teach you.
ใครเคยฟังหลวงพ่อเทศน์แล้วยกมือ
Who has listened to my teaching before? Raise your
ย
hand.
กมือขึ้นนะ
Raise your hands.
เคยเกือบทางนั้นนะ
Most of you
เอาละ
have.
ลงได้
Okay, take your hands down.
ธรรมะนะเป็นของอัศจรรย์
Dhamma is
เรา
an
เรียน
amazing
ด้วยการ
thing.
อ่านด้วยการฟัง
You study by
ด้วย
reading,
การ
by
คิด
listening,
หาเห
by
ตุหาผล
thinking,
อะไรเนี่ย
looking for logics
มัน
and
ไม่ได้ผล
causes and
ไม่
effects.
สำเร็จ
It doesn't
สู้
work.
กิเลสไม่ได้
You cannot fight with the defilements.
กิเลสมันอยู่ที่ใจเรา
The defilements arise in your mind.
ถ้าเราหมั่นสังเกต
If you
จิตใจตัว
are
เองบ่อย
diligent at taking noticing of
ๆ
your
กิเลส
mind,
เกิดแล้วเรารู้
whatever
ทันนะ กิเล
defilements
สมันก็ดับ
arise,
ไป
be mindful of it. The defilements will just fall away.
ทำไมเราต้องสู้กิเลสนะกิเล
Why
ส
do we have to
มี
fight
หลายตัว
against the defilements? There are
ควา
so
มโล
many
ภ
of
ความ
them:
โกรธความหลง
the greed,
นี่เพราะว่าตั
the
วความหล
anger,
ง
the
เนี่ย
aversion, and the delusion.
เป็นตัวกิเลส
The
ที่ร้ายที่
delusion
สุด
is the worst of
เรา
them, the
เรียน
worst of all.
โดยเฉพาะ
When you are
ว่าอา
deluded,
การของกิเลสนั่นคือตัวอวิชชาก็เป็นความหลง
it's the
สุด
ignorance.
ยอดของความ
It's
หลง
the ultimate level of
คื
delusion.
อสภาวะที่เราไม่รู้ความ
It's a
จริง
state
ของ
that you
ชีวิต
don't really understand the truth about
ถ้า
life.
เราไม่รู้ความจริงของชีวิตนะจิตใจเราก็
And
เกิด
when you
ดิ้นร
don't
น
understand
วุ่น
the
วายขึ้น
truth
มา
about life,
ความ
then
ทุ
your
กข์
mind
ใน
starts
ใจ
to
เราก็เกิด
struggle
ขึ้น
and the sufferings arise.
ศาสนาพุทธนั้นตอบโจทย์ที่สำคัญ
Buddhism
ที่สุด
is
คือทำอย่างไร
has
เรา
the
จะไม่ทุกข์
answers to life. That is the most
การ
important.
เริ่ม
Is
ต้น
what do we do in
อยู่
order
ที่
to
ตัว
not
ถูก
suffer? So it starts out with the
อะไรมัน
suffering.
เป็นทุกข์บ้างนะว่าร่างกายเป็นทุกข์
What
กับจิต
what
ใจ
in
เป็นทุกข์
ourselves that
มีสอง
suffer?
ส่
The
วน
body
นะ
suffer and then the mind suffer. There are only two parts.
ร่างกายมันเป็นทุกข์เพราะมั
The
น
body
ต้อง
suffers
แก่ต้องเจ็บต้อง
because
ตาย
it ages, it will get sick,
จิ
and
ต
it
ใจ
will
เราเป็น
die.
ทุกข์นะเพ
The
ราะเรา
mind
ต้องเจอ
suffers
กับสิ่ง
because
ที่ไม่ชอบ
we'll
ใจ
face and encounter
เรา
with the
ต้อง
things
พัด
that
พ
we
รากจาก
dislike.
สิ่งที่เรา
We
ชอบ
have
ใจ
to part ways from the things that we
เรา
love,
ไม่สมหวัง
and we feel
เนี่ย
disappointed.
เกิดความทุกข์ขึ้น
These
อันนี้เป็น
disappointments
ความ
bring
ทุกข์ทั่ว
sufferings.
ๆไป
This is the typical
ที่คนส่วนใหญ่
commonplace
ไม่
suffering
ไม่อยา
that
ก
we
มี
have.
ความทุกข์ไม่
And
อยากคิด
most
ถึงความทุกข์
people don't want to think about the
อยาก
suffering.
คิดถึงแต่ความ
They
สุข
just
สนุกสนา
want
น
to
มันเป็น
feel
การ
the happiness,
หลอก
the
ตัวเอง
joy,
ไป
the
วันหนึ่ง
enjoyment.
วันหนึ่งเท่านั้น
It's just a way of fooling
แต่ใน
yourself
ชีวิตจริง
day
ของเรา
by
นะ
day. But
เรา
in
หนี
real
ควา
life,
มแก่ความ
you
เจ็บความ
cannot
ตายไม่
escape
ได้
any of these about aging,
เราหนี
sickness, and
การ
death.
พลัดพราก
We
จากสิ่ง
cannot
ที่รัก
escape from
หนีจาก
any
การพบกับสิ่งที่
departures
ไม่
from
รัก
things you
ไม่
like. You
ได้
cannot escape from
เรา
encountering
อย่า
with
สั่ง
things that we
จิต
dislike.
ว่าอย่าให้เกิดความอยาก
When you have
เรา
your
สั่งไม่ได้
thoughts and you have desire,
แต่
you
ใน
want to
ชี
stop
วิต
this,
จ
you
ริง
cannot
ๆ เราหนีความ
command
ทุกข์
it.
ไม่พ้น
So in real life, you cannot escape any suffering.
เมื่อหนีความทุกข์ไม่พ้นนะพระพุทธเจ้าเลยสอ
When
น
you
ให้เรา
cannot
เผชิญ
escape
หน้ากับ
this,
มัน
the Buddha had
เรียนรู้
taught
มัน
us
ไป
to confront it, study it.
นี่คนส่วนใหญ่ ไม่อยากเรียนรู้
But the
ทุกข์
majority of the people
แต่
don't
อยา
like
ก
to
ดับทุก
study
ข์
the
อยากไม่มีความ
suffering,
ทุกข์
but they want the cessation
เห
of
มือน
the
เหมือน
suffering.
เวลา
They
ไฟ
want
ไห
the
ม้
suffering to go away.
เราก็
Just
คิด
like
ง่ายๆ
when
นะ
there is
ว่าไฟไหม้
fire,
เรา
you
เอา
can
น้ำไปฉีด
easily
นะ
think
ไฟก็
that
ดับ
you're just getting rid of
เรา
the
คิดว่าเราดับ
fire.
ไฟ
You thought it's that
ที่
simplistic.
จริงไม่
We,
มีใคร
you
ดับ
thought
ไฟ
that you're
ได้
putting
นะ
out the fire.
ที่
Actually,
ดั
in
บมัน
fact,
เขาดับที่เห
there
ตุข
is
องไฟ
no way to put out the fire. You
แต่
can
ไฟไหม้
only
เพราะอุณหภูมิ
stop
มันสู
the
ง
cause of the
เอาน้ำไป
fire.
ฉีดลดอุณห
For
ภูมิลง
example, when the
เหตุของ
temperature
ไฟ
is
มันไม่
higher,
มีไฟมันก็ดับ
that's one of the causes that the
ไฟมันไหม้เพราะมัน
fire
มี
is
เชื้อเพลิ
there.
ง
So if you lower the
เอาเชื้
temperature,
อเพ
you
ลิงออกไป
pour the
นะ
water in,
อย่าง
the
ไฟลาม
temperature is lower,
บ้าน
then
ใก
it
ล้
just
ๆกันนะ
disappeared. Or when there is fuel,
ดับไม่ไหว
that's
นะ
the
เพราะ
cause
รื้อ
of
บ้านทิ้ง
fire.
สอง
If you
หลังเลย
take out of the
ไฟ
fire,
ก็มาไม่ได้ไฟ
for
ก็ดับ
example, if the
มันไม่มีเชื้อ
houses are on fire and you take out one or two
หรือ
houses,
อย่าง
then
เว
the
ลา
fire
ไฟ
would
มัน
stop
ไหม้
spreading.
น้ำมันนะ
Or when the fire
เอา
is
โฟมไป
burning
ฉีด
the oil,
ไม่ให้อา
if you
กาศ
put
เข้า
some
ไปตรง
special
นั้น
chemicals
ไฟ
blocking the air from reaching the oil,
เพราะฉะนั้นในความ
then
เป็
you
นจริ
can
ง
put
นะกระ
out
ทั่
the
งการ
fire.
ดับไฟนะ
So even
เขาไม่
just
ดับ
to
ที่
put
เหตุ
out
ขอ
the
งไฟ
fire, you have
เรา
to
ไม่ได้ดั
stop
บตั
the
วไฟ
cause of the fire. You're not
ถ้า
putting
เหตุ
out
ของ
the
ไฟมันดับ
fire directly.
ตัวไฟมันก็ดับ
The causes are not
เห
there.
ตุของ
The
ไฟ
fire
ก็
will
คือ
no longer
มันมี
exist.
เชื้อเพลิง
The causes
มัน
of
มี
fire
ออกซิเจน
are
มันมี
the
ความ
fuel,
ร้อน
the
มากพอ
oxygen,
แต่
and
ถ้า
the
ลด เหตุ
heat.
ของมันลงไป
So if you get
ผล
rid
มันก็
of
ไม่
the
มี
causes,
ไฟมันก็ดับ
then there will not be any consequence,
ตัวทุกข์
which
มัน
is
ก็เหมือนกั
the
น
fire.
พระ
Sufferings
พุทธ
is the
เจ้าไม่
same
ได้สอน
thing.
ให้เราดับตัวทุกข์
There
นะ
is no need to stop
ท่านสอนให้เราดับ
the
ที่เหตุของ
suffering.
ตัวทุกข์
You need to only
เพราะตัว
stop
ทุกข์ไม่
the
มีใคร
cause
ดั
of
บได้
sufferings.
อย่างความแก่ ความเจ็บ ความตาย
So
ใครจะไปดับได้
who can stop the
แต่ที่
aging,
เรา
the
พลัด
sickness,
พ
and
ราก
death?
จากสิ่ง
So
ที่
when
รั
we
ก
have
ที่
to
พอ
part
ใจ
ways from the things that we love,
เราก็ห้ามไม่ได้
we cannot
อย่า
stop
ง คน
that.
ที่เรารักจะตาย
If
ใครจะ
someone
ไป
you
ห้าม
love
ไม่
is
ได้
dying, can you stop it? No, no one
เพราะฉะนั้น
can.
ไอ้ตัวทุกข์แล้วเราไป
So
จัด
the
การกับมัน
sufferings,
ตรงๆไม่ได้
you cannot
ท่านเล
directly
ยสอน
deal with the
เรา
suffering itself.
ให้ดับ
So the
ที่
Buddha had
ของ
taught
ความ
us
ทุกข์
that you can stop the cause of suffering.
นี่ความทุกข์มี 2 ส่วน ความทุกข์ใน
There
ร่า
are
ง
two
กาย
parts
และ
of
ความทุกข์
sufferings, the
ในจิต
sufferings
ใจ
in the body and the sufferings in the mind.
ความทุกข์ในร่างกายน่ะ
The
มันเกิ
sufferings
ดมาแล้ว
in
อะ
the body,
มีกรรม
once it
เก่าส่งผลมา
started,
ให้เราเกิด
it's
เป็น
because
มนุษย์ อย่างเนี้ย
it is a repercussions of
มัน
what
ก็มี
of
ข
all
อบ
the
เข
deeds
ต
you've done in the
ที่ร่าง
past.
กายของมนุษย์จะทนได้
So there
อย่าง
are
มากก็
the
อยู่ 100 ปี
limitations
100 ปีหน่
that the
อยๆ
body
นะ บาง
can
คน
withstand. For
ไม่กี่ปี
example,
ก็ตาย
someone
แล้ว
can live for a century,
แต่แต่ละ
100
คน
years long, but some
มีร่าง
people
กา
live
ย
for
ขึ้น
a
มา
few
ร่าง
years
กาย
and
มัน
they
ก็
just
มีลิ
die.
มิตของมัน
So
มีขอบเขตของ
each
มัน
and every person will be subject
เรา
to the
แก้
limits
ต้อง
of their
ไม่
life.
ให้มันแก่ ไม่ให้มัน
You
เจ็บ ไม่ให้มัน
cannot
ตาย ไม่ได้
fix the problems of
จะทำ
aging,
ยังไงเวลาเราแก่
sickness, or
แล้วเรา
death.
จะไม่เสียใจ
So
เวลาเจ็บ
how do
ป่วย
we
ไม่
not
กลุ้มใจ
feel
เวลา
sad
จะ
as
ตาย
we
เราก็
age,
ไม่เดือ
as
ด
we
ร้อน
get
เลย
sick, or if we're
แล้ว
dying?
พระพุทธเจ้าจะตอบโจ
So
ทย์
the
ให้เรา
Buddha has answered this question.
ส่วนความทุกข์ทางใจนะ การ
The
ที่
sufferings in the mind,
เราจะประสบกับอารมณ์ที่ถูก
when
ใจ
we come to contact with
หรือ
something
อา
that
รม
we
ณ์ที่ไม่
like
ถูกใจ
or
นะ
something that we don't
ก็
like,
เป็นวิบากนะ
these
เป็
are
นกรรม
all
เป็นผล
the
ของกรรม
consequences of all the
กรรม
deeds
ดี
you've
ให้
done
ผ
in
ล
the
มาเรา
past.
ก็ได้เจอ
If it's
แต่
the
อา
good
รมณ์ที่
deeds,
ถู
it's
กใจ
giving you the
กรรมไม่ดีให้ผล
consequences.
มา
You
เรา
will
ก็
get
เจออารมณ์ที่
to
ไม่ถูกใจ
come to contact with something that is
อย่างเราทุกคน
pleasant
มี
for
ตา
you,
อย่างเงี้ย ตาเราไม่ได้
or
บอ
if
ด
it's a bad deed, it's
มีแสงส
causing
ว่า
the
ง
bad
มากพ
things
อ
to come to contact. For
เราก็เห็น
example, you have your eyes
อะไรผ่านเข้ามา
and
นะ
something
ตาเราก็
is
เห็น
giving results. Whatever comes
เรา
into
เลือก
your
ไม่ได้
eyes, you will
ว่า
see that image
จง
that
เห็นแต่
comes
ของ
in
สวย
front
ข
of
อง
your
งาม
eyes. You cannot choose
อย่า
just
เห็
to
นข
see
อง
the
น่าเกลียด
beautiful
ไป
and pleasant
เรา
things
ห้ามไม่ได้
and not to see
ในจ
unpleasant
มูก
things.
เรา
You
เราสั่ง
cannot
ไม่
stop
ได้
that. Just
เรา
like
ได้
the
กลิ่นห
same
อมอ
for
ย่าง
your
เดียว
nose. Just to
อย่า
smell
ได้กลิ่น
any
เหม็น
good
อะไรอย่างเงี้ย
scent.
ให้
No,
อาร
not
มณ์ต่
you
าง
cannot
ๆ ที่มา
escape
ก
the
ระทบ
bad scent that
ตา
will
หู
come
จ
to
มูก ลิ้น
contact
กาย
with
ใจ
you.
ของเรา
Whatever that comes to
ตา
contact with
หู
your
จมูก
sense
ลิ้นกาย
doors,
กระท
the
บแล้ว
eyes, the ears,
มั
the
นก็ส่ง
nose, the
สัญญาณเข้ามาที่ใจ
body,
เรา
the tongue, and the
เห็
mind.
นข
It
อง
will
สวย
send the
ใจก็ชอบ
signals
เห็
to
น
the
ของไม่
mind.
สวย
When
ใจ
you
ก็
see
ไม่ชอบ
something
กัน
beautiful, it's your
เรา
mind
ห้าม
like
ไม่
it.
ได้
And
ใน
if
ตา
you
มั
see
นก็เห็น
something
นะ
unpleasant, you
เห็
dislike
น
it. When
สิ่ง
your
ที่ดีบ้าง
eyes,
ไม่
you
ดีบ้าง
have, you will see good
มี
things
หู
and bad
ก็
things.
ได้ยิน
When you have
สิ่ง
your
ที่ถูกใจ
ears,
บ้า
you
ง
will
ไม่ถูก
hear
ใจบ้าง
good things and bad things.
ในใจเราคิด
Something
นะ
that you like and
เรา
dislike.
คิดเรื่อง
As
ที่
the
ดีบ้าง
mind
เรื่อง
start
ที่
to
ร้ายบ้างห้ามไม่ได้
and you have the mind, your mind start to think good or bad things. You cannot
เพราะฉะ
stop
นั้น
it.
ตัวทุกข์จริงๆนะ
So
เรา
the
ห้ามมันไม่ได้
suffering, you
ตรง
cannot
ๆนะ
stop it directly.
ท่านสอนเราลึกซึ้งลงไป
So
เนี่ยบางคนบอ
the
ก
Buddha had
ศา
taught
ส
us
นาพุทธเป็น
in
ศาสนาที่มองโลกแง่ร้าย
deeply.
สอนแต่
So
เรื่องทุกข์
people say Buddhism is a
ความจริง
pessimistic
ไม่ใช่มองโล
religion,
กแง่ร้ายนะ
studying only
แต่เป็น
sufferings.
การส
It's
อนให้เรา
not
มองโล
about
ก
being
ตามความเป็นจริง
pessimist. It's about
ความจริง
teaching
ของ
us
ร่าง
to
กาย
see
ต้อง
the
แก่ต้อง
truth
เจ็บต้อง
of
ตาย
life,
ความ
that
จริ
the
งของ
body
จิต
is
ใจ
subject
นะ
to
ต้อง
aging,
สุขบ้าง
sickness,
ทุ
and
กข์บ้าง
death.
ดี
And
บ้า
the
งร้าย
truth
บ้าง
about mind, it's sometimes good,
ท่านไม่ได้
sometimes
สอน
bad,
ให้เรา
happy, unhappy. The Buddha did not
ว่า
teach
อย่า
us
มีความทุกข์อะไรนะ
that
ห้ามไม่ได้
not to have any sufferings. It's
แล้วก็
something that you
ถ้าท่าน
cannot
สอน
stop.
แค่ว่า ชีวิต
And
เรา
if He
เต็
has
มไปด้วย
taught
ความ
us
ทุกข์
that life is full of
อันนี้
sufferings,
แส
then
ดงว่าพระพุทธเจ้ามองโลกแง่
that
ร้าย
is
แต่ท่านไม่ได้สอนแค่นั้น
Buddha
นะ
would be
ท่าน
full
สอ
of
น ถึง วิธี
pessimism.
ที่เราจะ
He's
ดับ ความ
actually
ทุกข์
He has also taught us
ความทุกข์
how to
ที่
end
เรา
the
จะมุ่งดับ
sufferings.
ตอนนี้ก็คื
The
อความทุกข์
sufferings
ในใจ
that we can
คือความ
aim
ทุกข์ใน
to
ร่าง
stop
กายนะ
is the sufferings in
เรา
the
ได้
mind.
รับร่างกายมาแล้
For
ว
the body, once you
ยังไง
have received
ก็
your
หนีไม่พ้
body
น
and
ควา
have
ม
this
แก่ความเจ็บ
body,
ความ
you
ตาย
cannot escape the
แต่ถ้า
aging,
ใจ
the
เรายอมรับ
sickness,
ความจริงได้
and
นะว่า
death.
ร่างกายเรา
But
ต้อง
if you
แก่
can
ต้องเจ็บ ต้อง
accept
ตาย
this truth about the body,
เว
about
ลาแก่
aging,
เว
sickness,
ลา
and
เจ็บ เว
death,
ลาตายใจมัน
then
จะ
when
ไม่
it
ทุกข์
these happen, you will not
คือ
suffer
มั
in
น
the
ทุกข์เพราะ
mind.
มันยอมรับความจริงไม่ได้
Most people
ใน
suffer
การ
just
ที่เรา
because
จะ
they
ต้องพลัด
cannot
พราก
accept this truth.
จากคนที่เรา
The
รัก
fact that you
ค
have
น
to
ที่เรา
part
พอ
ways
ใจ
from
พ
the
ลัดพราก
people you
จากทรัพ
love
ย์ส
or
มบั
from
ติ
things that you like, from your properties and
เรา
assets,
ห้ามมันไม่ได้
then you cannot
แต่ทำยังไง
stop
ให้เรา
it,
พลัดพ
but
ราก
you
เมื่อ
feel the sufferings.
ถ้าจิตเรา
But
ฝึก
what
ดี
do
แล้
we
ว เรา
do
ไม่
if you
ทุกข์
train your mind well enough?
จิตมัน
You
จะ
will
ไม่
not
ทุกข์นะ
suffer, the mind will
เห
not
มือนร่าง
suffer.
กายแก่เจ็บตาย
Just like as
จิต
the
ที่ฝึก
body
ดี
is
แล้วก็ไม่
aging,
ทุกข์
getting sick or dying,
เวลาเราเจอ
the
ปัญหาชีวิต
well-trained
เรา
mind
ต้อ
will
ง
not
พลัดพรากจาก
suffer.
คนที่เรารัก ต้องเจ
So
อ
if
คน
you
ที่
have
เรา
to
เกลี
part
ยดนะ
ways from the people you
จิตเรา
love
ก็ไม่
and
ทุกข์
you have to encounter with the people you
ควา
dislike,
มทุกข์ใน
the
จิต
mind
ใจ
will not
เกิดจาก
suffer.
ความ
The
อยาก
sufferings inside the mind usually
ถ้าไม่
arise
มีความ
because
อยา
of
กนะใจ
the
จะไม่มีความ
desire
ดิ้
that
น
you
รน
have. When you don't
ค
have
วาม
the
อยากเกิด
desire,
ที
you
ไร
will not have the
ความดิ้
struggle.
นร
And
นของจิต
whenever
ก็เกิดที่
there
นั่
is
น
desire, the struggling
ค
will
วาม
s-
ดิ้นรนของจิต
happen,
เกิดที่
and
ไร
this
ความ
struggling
ทุกข์ก็
that
เกิดที่นั่น
arises
ควา
and
ม
the
ทุกข์ในใจ
suffering will
นะ ก็
follow.
จะเกิดที่นั่น
Always, the suffering in the mind always follows.
นี่ความอยากถ้าดู
So
ให้ดี ทำไม
the
อยากทีไรก็
desire,
ทุกข์ทุกที
whenever you have this, when you have the
สิ่งที่
greed,
เรา
the
อยากมันล้
desire,
วนแต่ของไม่มีจริง
everything you want
อย่าง
is
เราอยากไม่แก่
actually
เงี้ย
illusion.
มันไม่มีจริง อ
This
ยากไม่เจ็บ
is
เงี้ย
it's
มันไม่
all
มีจริง
illusions.
อยาก
There
ไม่
is
ตาย
no
เงี้ยก็ไม่
such
มี
thing
จริง
that you desire.
อยากไม่
For
พลัดพ
example,
รา
you
ก
want
จาก
not
ค
to
นที่
get
เรา
old,
รัก
not
เนี่
to
ยไม่
get
มี
sick,
จริง
not to die, not to
เรา
part ways
เรา
from
โต
the
มา
people
จน
you
ป่าน
love.
นี้แล้วเนี่ย
It's just impossible.
คน
It
ที่
just
เรารู้
cannot
จัก
be
คนที่เรารัก
achieved.
อะไร
It
เนี่ย
cannot
ล้
be
มหายตายจาก
accomplished.
ไปเยอะแยะ
You
นะ
you have seen
หรือ
in
บาง
your
คน
life
ไม่
the
ตาย
people
ยั
you
งไม่
love have
ย้ายบ้านไปอ
died,
ยู่
and
ที่
some
อื่นไม่ได้
people
เจอ
just
กันนะ
moved away, and you
พ
don't
ลัด
get
พ
to
ราก
meet them anymore. You
แต่ในชี
can
วิตเรานะความจริงมัน
part
มีอ
from
ยู่แล้ว
them, dead or
นี่
alive.
ค่อยๆ ดู
There is
ค่
this
อยๆ
truth
สัง
in
เกต
life. If you take good
ไอ้
notice
ความ
of
อยาก
this,
ทั้งหมดน่ะ
all these
มันเป็นของที่
desires
ไม่จริง
are impossible.
อยากให้คนที่รัก
The
อยู่กับเราตลอด
the
กาล
wish
นะ
that you
มัน
would
ก็ไม่
be
จริง
with someone you love
อ
forever
ย่าง
to
พ่อแม่เรา
eternity,
เรา
that's
รัก
just
ใช่ไหม
not
เราอยากให้
possible.
อยู่ตลอด
Like
ไป
you love
มั
your
นก็เป็นไป
parents,
ไม่ได้
you want them to last
ไอ้ความอยา
forever,
กเนี่ย
to
เป็นข
live
องที่ไม่
forever.
มี
That's
จริง
not
นะ
possible. So
อะ
these
ไรที่เรา
desires
มี
are
แล้วเราก็ไม่ต้องอยาก
impossible. So
ไอ้
whatever
ของ
you
ที่อยา
have,
ก
you
นั้นล้
don't
วน
have
แต่ข
to
อง
have
ไม่
the
ดี
desire.
คือของมี
Whatever
ไม่
you
ได้นะ
want, it's actually impossible. It's
เนี่ย
something that's
มันเป็นอย่างเนี้ย
it just cannot be accomplished.
นี่พระเจ้าก็สอนเรานะว่า
So
เว
the
ลาค
Buddha
วามอ
had
ยากมัน
taught
เกิด
us
เนี่ย
that
มันเป็น
whenever
ความ
there
หวัง
is
ลมๆแล้
desire,
น
it's just a
ๆ หวังใน
nonsense
สิ่งซึ่งเป็นไปไม่ได้
hope
หวังในสิ่ง
for
ที่ไม่ถาว
something
ร
that it does not cannot be achieved. It's
ถ้า
not
หวังที
something
ไร
that
ใจมันก็ทุกข์ทุก
can
ที
be
นะ
sustained or permanent. So whenever you have
ที่
this
ท่านสอน
desire, you
ต่อคือ
suffer. So then the Buddha had taught us
ความ
further
ความอยากอะความอยาก
these
ทั้งหลายเนี่ย
desires.
เราจะดับตัวมัน
How
ก็
do
ยัง
we
ดับไม่ได้
end
นะ
them? You cannot
อย่า
end
ง
the
เราอยากจะรั
desires
ก
themselves.
ใครสักคนเราก็ห้ามไม่ได้นะ
So if you're gonna love someone,
อยาก
can
จะ
you
เกลียด
stop
ใครสั
them?
กคนยัง
If
สั่
you're
งไม่
gonna
ได้เล
hate
ย
someone, can you stop it?
อยากมีความ
The
สุขเราก็
hatred?
สั่งร่างกาย
If
เรา
you
มี
want to
แต่
be
ความสุข
happy,
เนี่ยก็สั่งไม่
can
ได้
you tell the body to
ร่าง
be
กายอย่า
just
ทุกข์สั่ง
happy?
ไม่ได้
Can you
จิต
tell
ใจ
the
จง
body
มี
not
แต่
to
ความสุข
suffer?
ก็สั่งไม่ได้
Can you tell the mind
จิต
to
ใจอย่า
always be
ทุกข์ก็
happy?
สั่งไม่ได้
Can you tell the mind not to
ไม่
suffer?
ได้ตัว
No,
ค
you
วามอยากเนี่ย
cannot.
เราควบคุมไม่
So
ได้
this
โดย
the
ตัวของมันเอ
desire
ง
itself cannot be
พระพุท
controlled.
ธเจ้าก็สอนให้เรารู้
So
ลึกซึ้
the
งลงไป
Buddha
อีก
had taught us further
ต้นตอ
for
รากเหง้า
the
ข
root
องความอยา
cause
กที่
of
แท้
the
จริง
desire.
นะคือการไม่รู้ความจริงของ
It's
ชีวิต
about the ignorance. It's about the
เมื่อเราไม่รู้ความ
misunderstanding
จริง
about
ข
the
องชี
truth
วิต
of
เราไม่
life.
ยอมรับความจริง
When you
ของชี
cannot
วิต
accept the truth
เราก็
of
เกิดความ
life,
อยาก
so you have these
ทันที
desires.
ที่เกิดความ
And
อยา
when
ก
you
จิ
have
ตใจ
these
ก็ไม่สง
desires,
บแล้ว
the
จิตใจ
mind
ก็
is
ดิ้นร
no
นวุ่น
longer
วาย
peaceful, it's restless,
ใจ
it's
เราก็มีความ
struggling,
ทุกข์ขึ้นมา
and you start to suffer. The mind
เพราะฉะ
start
นั้น
to
ในการที่
suffer.
เราไม่รู้ความจริง
So
ของชีวิตเนี่ย
as because you don't have this understanding, it is the ignorance. It's the root cause for all these desires of these cravings. And these desires and cravings cause the struggling of the mind. And when you have this struggling, you have the suffering. So as you practice more and more and more, whenever you have happiness that arises, and if you take a notice of your mind, that you see that the movements of the mind, the disturbances. So it's not the true peace or happiness. The mind is at work all the time, day and night. It's so tiring. The body is at work 8 to 10 to 12 hours, and then you get some rest. But the mind is working all day, all night. is endless. Even though you are asleep, you start dreaming. So the mind is so full of sufferings. So as you study the truth of life, whatever that's comprised your life, just to, in the simplest form, it's just the body and mind. But if you break them down further, it's the 5 aggregates. So the body is the form, and if you separate them out, they are elements. It's the earth, the fire, the water, and the air. So for the mind, if you notice them, there are many things that comprise the mind. The happiness, unhappiness, or indifference. This first group is the feelings. Then the second group is the perception. It's the memory and the perception. So that's sanya. So it's not just feelings, there's also perceptions. And then it's just there are feelings and there are perceptions. And there is the third area, which is some mental formation. Sometimes it's wholesome fabrication, sometimes it's unwholesome fabrications. But any of these feelings, perceptions, or mental formations, it's not the mind itself. And then the fourth kind, that is consciousness. So in the simplest form, it's the body and mind. And then if you separate further, you have the elements, and then the mind can be broken down into things that comprise the mind. It's the feelings, it's the perceptions, and it's the mental formations. These are not the mind, but it's something that arises together with the mind. The mind itself is the nature of having being consciousness. It's not good or bad on its own. It's got happiness because the feelings arise together with the mind. There is some unhappiness arising together with the mind. Wholesome, unwholesomeness, desire, the aversion, or the delusion arise together with the mind. So when you have anger arises together with the mind, so the mind is angry. You can say that, or the mind is deluded, then the mind having delusion arise together. So it's not good or bad on its own. It's good or bad, it's just the thing that arises together. So in the body, if you separate out further, these are the 4 elements, the mind and the matter. So on the mind itself, there are 4 parts. So the mind, that is the consciousness, and then the feelings and the perceptions and the mental formations that arise together with the mind. So as you separate them out, these are the things that we believe is us, it's ourself, it's the self. So the Buddha had taught us to understand the reality about life. So how do we understand this? We need to separate them out, these things that are clumped together into different parts, and you start to see that each and every part is not us. There is no us anywhere. There's no self anywhere. When you feel that the body is us, if you keep contemplating and considering your body, and you see that it's like different parts, different elements. Breathing in, you see the air. You see the food coming in. It's just something comes in and it flows out. The air goes out. The water comes in and the water goes out, or turns into sweat. It turns into urine. Everything. All these elements flow in and then they flow out. If you see the body as elements flowing in and out, these elements is not human. It's not animal. It's not you. It's not us. It's not me. As you breathe in the air, is the air a part of self? No, it's not us. When you eat food, is the food a part of us? No, it's actually no. As you drink water, it's not us. As you separate them out into elements, and then you start to feel that the body is comprised of the 4 elements. As you separate them out, each of the 4 elements is not us. So whatever that you feel as the body is being us, is actually, it's an incorrect understanding. It's a misconception. about the truth about life, about the body. It's not us. If the body is us, it should be under your command. You should be able to tell it not to age, not to get sick, and not to die. And these elements exist way before us. The world consists of these elements. The whole universe is composed of these elements. The whole galaxy is composed of all elements. As the elements combine together with the right proportion, it turns into a life form. And then, but if you separate them into parts again, you see that there is no us anywhere. The body is not self. So the mind is in a similar way. It's the same thing. If you see the happiness arises in your mind. If you take notice, the happiness and the mind are separate parts. The mind is just the consciousness, and the happiness is something that arises. So the sufferings, when it arises, it's the same thing. The sufferings arise, and the mind are separate things. The sufferings are something that arise together. The mind is just the consciousness. Or when you have desire, the anger, delusion, when you never practice, when you're angry, people pay attention to the things that bring anger to you. But a practitioner would observe the mind that is being angry. We do not observe others. And as you practice more and more, you see that the mind itself is not the part that gets angry. The mind is one part and the anger is another part. So the greed, the desire, the delusion, the mind is just the consciousness. It's not these things themselves. So can you see that is this us? The happiness is it us? No, it's not us. The sufferings are not us. The wholesomeness or unwholesomeness are not us. So the greed, the anger, the delusion are not us. As you have an angry mind, you observe it. It's just something that the mind becomes aware of, become conscious of. As you keep separating, you see that the body is not us. It's just some elements. So these feelings is not us. It's non-self. The perception and memory is not us. The mental formations, good or bad, are not us. So when you have the awareness, the mindfulness arises. When you have the faith arises, none of this is us. When you have the greed is not us. So that's the method that the Buddha had taught us, to separate out whatever they believe that is us into different parts. And as you deconstruct it and you see these different components, self disappears. Just like when you have a car, if you feel that there is a car, there's truly a car. But if you disassemble the car into different parts, you see that there is no car. So when you have one car, you take out the wheels are not car. The body is not car. The engine is not a car. And these wires, these lamps are not a car. The battery is not a car. But however, when they are put together, it becomes a car. And we believe that the car truly exists. If you observe the body and mind and you separate them out into different parts, you see that these mind and body, the mind and the matter, this is not us. The feelings that is us disappears. So as you separate out, so the five aggregates can be separated out. It's easy to separate them. But the fifth one, the consciousness, the mind is just some, it's just chitta and mind are the same thing. But when it's at work, to become conscious of anything that comes to contact with your sense doors. So it's the consciousness. Chitta is a very broad word, but The consciousness is just to become conscious of things that come to contact. Or sometimes it does get cling to the contacts that come. So it also does record all the memories. So there are different kinds of minds, 121 kinds. You don't need to understand all of them. You just need to understand the consciousness. So it's the consciousness that arises through the six sense doors at the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. So there's an image arises, come to contact with the eyes. So there's like a visual contact. So the body feels the softness, the heat, then the consciousness arises at the body or at the ears or at the tongue. So when the consciousness become aware of the thoughts, so the mind is having the consciousness on the mental side. So it becomes aware of the stories that we're thinking about. So how do we get rid of this misconception? So try to observe the consciousness. You see that the mind moves to different sense doors, to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, to feel the touch. So these different sense doors, the mind is just go to these different sense doors, having the consciousness just to become contact to see an image and see them temporarily. And the consciousness that arises at the eyes is not us. Or if the mind or the consciousness rushes to hear something at the ears, then the mind arises and falls away. It's never at the ears. And then the mind arises at the ears temporarily, and there is no us there. Keep observing in order to see all these 5 aggregates that is not us. You need different tools. 2 different tools. The first one is you need the correct mindfulness and then the correct samadhi. These are the 2 main tools for you to study the body and mind. So that's the tools, sati and samadhi. These 2 are the main tools for you to study. Most of the people who practice, actually they don't have the true mindfulness, not the true sati, and they don't have the true correct samadhi. They are the incorrect kind. So what you need to develop in order to study the 5 aggregates, the body and mind correctly, in order to see the truth, the ultimate truth, and you will no longer struggle, you need to develop these correct sati and correct samadhi. The correct sati, the Buddha had taught us that you can practice the foundations of mindfulness. When you become aware of the body, the feelings of the mind, whatever that comes to contact, that's the foundations of mindfulness. It's not the same thing as the awareness in the worldly sense. When you don't make mistakes in your task, that's just the worldly awareness, mindfulness. So the correct kind of mindfulness is just that you have to be mindful of your own body and mind. In the world, there are very few people who are actually aware of their body and mind. Most of the times, they are lost. They're deluded. Rather than being aware of the body and mind, they become aware of others' matters, the matters that happening outside. It's not about their own body and mind. It's what they're accustomed to. They're used to doing this. They're being lost in the world. The mind is being sent out, as Luangpu Pramote always said. It's just the mind forgets their own body and mind. So how do we do this? You need to practice. The mind itself is not under your command, but it can be trained. why are we so good at getting lost? Because we've practiced this for a long time. When we were born, we became only interested and paying attention to the things that arise outside the body and mind, never become aware of the body and mind. So you need to start a new habit to become aware of the body and mind. So how do we do this?
Let's try, for example, breathing. Instead of letting the mind wandering away all the time, we become self-aware that now the body is breathing in or breathing out. Just keeping aware of this, but do not controlling your body and mind. Just being self-aware. While meditating, cultivating mindfulness, there are two things, there's two mistakes that people make. The first one is they forget about their object limitations. For example, they wander off, they leave the object limitations after a while. They forget about the object. And the other one is in you're controlling, you're focusing on the object. For example, when you're observing the breath, you'll stare at the breath, or you're trying to observe the body postures. For example, sitting right now, you're just being aware that the body is sitting, and that's it. But most people, while sitting, they think of other things. They drift away to other places outside the Dharma hall, for example. Other people, they all focusing, staring at the body sitting till the mind becomes stressful. So while meditating, cultivating mindfulness, instead of knowing or being aware of the body and mind as they really are, the first group of people, they forget about their objects, the meditation objects. The other group of people, they are staring or focusing on the objects till become stressful. And the mind will become unwholesome because the mind is stressful. But the mind that is wholesome is comprising comfort and relaxing. But if the mind is down, stiff, and stressed, is that they are unwholesome. Almost everyone, while practicing, they start practicing. Instead of trying to be aware of the body as they really are, they all focusing, being stressful, the mind become tight. There will be weight placed upon the mind. This is when you're controlling the mind. And also do not forget about the object as well, and do not controlling the body or mind. So this is the part when we're cultivating the full foundation of mindfulness. Most people don't know how to cultivate the full foundation of mindfulness. Some people say that they attend courses, for example, Vipassana practice, but most of the time they controlling or focusing of the body and mind and become stressful instead of just trying to be aware of the body and mind as they really are. So that's the principle of Dharma practice. There's only one verb, which is to know or to be aware. For example, breathing out, no so, breathing in, no so. Standing, sitting, lying down, no so. Or moving and still be aware of them. Or if they're stretching the hands, stretching the arms, or moving here and there. If you're going forward or backwards, being aware or no. This is only the one verb that we'll do, which is to know or to be aware. For example, the mind is happy, unhappy, being aware. Or if the mind unwholesome or wholesome, be aware. Or if unwholesome, no, or non-greed, non-delusion, no so. If the mind is restless, and no so. If it's miserable, no so as well. What we're trying to do is we're trying to train to be aware of these phenomena, not try to controlling them. So this is a very important point to understand. In this world, it's only limited to a few that truly become aware. It's only a few. If you can become self-aware, then you can improving your mind till you attain the Nibbana. Because the starting point of Dharma practice is being self-aware to cleanse the defilements. To cultivate the full foundation of mindfulness, its objective is to become self-aware at the beginning. So it is a must that you have to practice. just listening is not good enough. You have to train yourself and see which observation is suitable for you. For example, myself, I kept practicing and I could see the body breathing out and breathing in, and also I'm being aware of the body breathing by using the mindfulness breathing. And for Prajana, he couldn't do the breathing techniques because there's a problem with his buckets of his nostril. So he used the body moves in nostril, being still nostril. So the meditation objects, you have to find the ones that suit you better. Any object of meditation that helps you cultivate mindfulness, that's good for you, which is different from person to another person. So I keep training myself to be mindful by using mindful breathing. While the breathe in, also breathing out, also for Ajahn for Prajana, he used the body no-so and the body stop no-so. But for Kunmashi, she used the crochet knitting. While knitting, and she can be aware of the body moves as well. So each person has their own suitable object limitations that makes them relaxed. But if that particular object makes you stressful, then that's not good. You have to keep on meditating on objects if the body moves no so, if the mind changes no so as well, till the mindfulness become better and better. I used to come to visit Luangpu Tien and try to observe what kind of techniques he's been teaching. He used the 14 patterns dynamic meditation, and he can become self-aware and have developing the mindfulness, and that's good. And I try to observe and train that pattern as well. Normally, I observe my mind while cultivating the wisdom, but while doing smarter practice, I do mindful breathing. So I observe Luangpu Tien moving pattern, and when it moves and also moves and being self-aware. When I was lay person, that's when Master Luangpu Tien taught lay people. When some lay people, once they move and drift away to think of other things, think something of outside of the temple, for example, they want to go different places after the monastery. Other group of people, they become so stressful and controlling the hands or staring at the hands. The mind sending out to the hands, the mind becomes still to the hands. But that's not good. But for Master Luangpu Tien, once he moves, his mind become awakened and mindful. So I try to train myself like that. Normally, I don't use the body movement, but once I try to train, like just trying to have a go on moving the hands and also moving and also. I don't use the 14 patterns, but I just use only two steps, moves and still, using my fist. Once there was one day I met a friend. I was so happy to see my friend, but I couldn't see the happiness. And I have to cross the road and look the car both sides. And once the legs moves and the mind feels, and the mind becomes awakened and realize that I was wander off at the moment. So this is when you train, for example, by meditating on an object that suits you well, that makes your mind relaxed and mindful, and try to observe yourself and try to meditate on that object on and on, not forgetting about the objects and not staring or controlling or focusing on the object as well. So you have to find the objects that suitable with you. Once you know that, then you meditate on the objects without forgetting or focusing on the breath. We try to be aware of the mind as normally as we can, within the natural normal mind. Then after a while, without intentions, when the body moves, then the mindfulness will kick in. For example, forgetting about yourself and your body moves and no so, or you just drift away, wandering away. But then the version arises, the mindfulness recognize the versions, then the automatic mindfulness will kick in, and you have to train yourself and meditate on your object without forgetting or without staring or focusing on the object to make your mind stressful. Then after a while, the automatic mindfulness will arise automatically. If it requires some intention to make the mindfulness arises, then it's the mindfulness with low quality. You have to train till your mind develop the automatic mindfulness. This is how we cultivate the mindfulness foundation. And as soon as the automatic mindfulness arises, the automatic samadhi will rise altogether. So samadhi doesn't mean calmness. The samadhi is actually the stability of the mind, which is the phenomena when the mind becomes self-aware without intentions or without controlling. The mind is with yourself without intentions, without controlling. Some master taught us, for example, when the mind drift away and no soul, wander again, no soul again. For example, or you can be aware of the minds that develop aversion. Once the mind is angry, no soul, not angry, no soul. But most of the time, we lost in thought all day long, keep on wondering to think of other things all the time. So we meditate on objects when the mind drifts away to think of other things and try to be aware that the mind just drifts away. At first it might take some time for you to recognize this pattern, but after a while, then the mind moves to think of other things, and the automatic mindfulness will kick in right away. Once it happens, then the lost mind will fall away, and the stable mind, the stable observer, will arise automatically. So it doesn't necessary for you to do anything complexity, but just meditate with the full faculty of mindfulness by knowing the body and mind without forgetting or focusing. Then the mind will start to gain the right samadhi, which is the phenomena which is the state of mind that the mind is with yourself. Whatever you do, you become self-aware. For example, I've been training myself since I was young. Even I was lying down, asleep, even turn left or right during a night, I can become self-aware. Like if there's a pain here and there, I can feel them. So I kept on training myself like this. So when you have the mindfulness and samadhi, which is the state of mind where your mind is with yourself, without forgetting about yourself, you are ready. Because you have two important tools. The first one is the right mindfulness. Whatever strange happens within the body and mind, the mindfulness will recognize automatically. The other one is the right samadhi, which is the mind that is with yourself without forgetting being self-aware with the natural mind. If you have these two tools, the wisdom cultivations of inside vipassana practice can truly arise. Without the right mindfulness or right samadhi, to cultivate wisdom is impossible, because the right samadhi is the proximate cause of the wisdom cultivation. And if we keep on cultivating the mindfulness, it will strengthen the right samadhi. And the right samadhi is the proximate cause of the wisdom. If the mind kept on wandering away without being with yourself, you cannot truly cultivate the wisdom, because you already forget about your body and mind. Without staring or focusing the body and mind is not. If you do that, it's not good. It's not true. So if you have the right samadhi, which is the state of the mind where your mind is with yourself, then you can learn the truth of the body and mind, so that you can learn about your 5 aggregates. This is the answer to why we have to train the right samadhi and right mindfulness. Without the right samadhi, the mind will keep on wandering away, forgetting about your body and mind. But how could you learn about the truth of the mind without being with yourself? That's the reason intrinsic reasons behind the question. So you have to meditate on an object that you're competent at knowing and try to be aware of the things that happens most often. For example, wander off to think of other things or wander away to observe or to stare or focusing on the object. For example, the breath. I used to teach Luangpu Pramote that he could see the wavering bits in the middle of his chest, and then the mind stare at that wavering bit, and then that was incorrect because the mind sending out to the middle of his chest. That's when the mind sending out. You have to kept on training for a long period of time, for many months, so he could see that the mind sending out to stare at the wavering bit in the middle of his chest. Likewise, when meditating on objects, for example, the breath, if you stare at the breath, or walking meditations in the mind, or focus on the body walking, or the rising and falling of abdomen, the mind stare at the mind sending out to the abdomen, and you can be aware of them, then that's not good. So you have to meditate on objects and try to be aware of your mind. If the mind wander off to other things, know so. If the mind stare at or focusing on the objects, know so as well. This is the quickest path, so that after a while you could see the mind moves here and there. Sometimes moves to things, sometimes moves to stare or focus on the body. Keep on practicing, you could see, learn the 5 aggregates, which is the last one, which is the consciousness or vijnana. If you could see the consciousness through different places, you can learn the consciousness of vijnana in Pali. To learn about the forms of the body is very easy to observe that it is not us. The body is not us all. If you're mind with yourself, then you can see that the perceptions, the mental formations, and the feelings, the wholesome and unwholesomeness are not us. But the consciousness is the last one, which is the vijnana. So if you train on meditate on objects and the mind wander off and also wander off again and also again, this is when we try to train to observe the vijnana or consciousness. And if you keep on training and you see that the mind wander off to think of other things, this is when the mind is sending out through the mind. And once known, that means that we can know that the mind rooted in the thought, rooted in the mind, which is the mental consciousness, and the mind become awakened again, if you knew. So you have to have the awakened mind. Without the awakened mind, then it's impossible for you to observe the rising and falling through 6 senses. It's impossible for you to observe the consciousness. But if your mind is with yourself, then sometimes you can see that the mind wander off to think, and the process of thinking is the mind sending out through thinking that the consciousness through the mind and my channel. Sometimes the consciousness is through the eyes. There's the consciousness roots in the eyes. Because hear something, or you're interested in paying attention to the hearing, then the consciousness is the one that perceives the objects through the ears. The consciousness or the mind is actually the ones that perceive the objects. Sometimes perceived through the eyes, the ears, the nose, sometimes perceived through the tongue or the body sensation or the body or the mind. Sometimes you can see that the body, sometimes the mind can perceive the objects through these 6 senses. We could witness this as long as we have the stable mind and become that the minds have become awakened and being aware. But it just stays for a while and then falls away, and the thinking mind arises again. If we become self-aware more and more, then the mind won't think lost in thought for too long. Normal people would lost in thought only one time, which is all day long. But if you keep on training, the mindfulness more quicker and quicker. Once the mind wander off, no so, wander off again, no so, also no so again, then you will keep on being lost from like 100,000 times a day. you could see that wholesome and unwholesome that arises through six sense doors. If the consciousness arises through six sense doors, it's all arise and fall away. You would be able to do this if you have the noble mind, the stable mind, that stable observer without forcing, overguessing. And once the consciousness knows the objects through the eyes, these knowing mind will fall away. You don't have to maintain, try to guard it. You don't have to try to guard it. Just try to be aware of them as they really are. For example, if there's someone passed and your mind is sending out to see him or her, you see that consciousness arises through the eyes and rooted in the eyes, and then lower minds will fell away, and the mind lost in the eyes, and after a while the mind becomes nowhere again. Nowhere mind stay for only a short period of time, and then it fall away, and there another lost mind through the eyes or ears or through the thing through the thought. Then the noble mind will rise again. So between the consciousness that arise through six sense doors, there will be noble minds that kept on taking turns arising. The knowing mind arises from the mind that knows the lost mind, give rise to the noble mind. You could see that sometimes the noble mind fall away, and the thinking mind arises. The thinking mind falls away, and the noble mind arises again. If the noble mind falls away, and there will be it give rise to the lost mind through the eyes, for example. This is for the Dharma practitioners. But for those who don't practice, they're full of lost mind, sometimes lost in thought, sometimes lost in the eyes, hearings, tasting, feeling through the bodies. Their minds are not with themselves. They cannot truly practice. So for the rest of us, we have to meditate on an object, but observe yourself, which object meditations that helps you relaxed, not stressful, and being mindful more often. But not just like if you're not stressful, but you become so relaxed and you keep on forgetting about yourself, that's not good as well. Just try to find the objects and make sure develop the mindfulness as much as you more softened. And then once the automatic mindfulness arises, then it'll give rise to the right samadhi. Once you have both right mindfulness and samadhi, whatever happens within the body and mind, you can see the three characteristics. For example, if the mind becomes self-aware or the mind lost, you cannot command them, you cannot control them because it's anatta, non-self. You can see the consciousness is actually impermanent and non-self. If you can see these five aggregates are subject to three characteristics, you can see that there's no self, there is no us. Even the knower myself is not us. There's no us anywhere. If you could see this with crystal clarity, then you can get rid of the wrong notions that there is a self. That the stream enters. He could see that the body and mind are not us and doesn't belong to us. And whatever happens within the body and mind, it won't cause you much suffering. You can see the body is ages. This body is not us. The body is the one that ages, is not us. So it causes you less suffering. If the minds do not attach to anything in this world, both body and mind, there's nothing could reach your mind. The mind will be with the eternal peacefulness and happiness. But when I said like this, you would think that it's actually permanent, but actually that's not the case, because it's already something that the jobs that you've already done. There's no further things that needs to be achieved. Because the mind is awakened and knowing and fulfilled, satiated within itself. The mind is not hungry for anything. If the mind is not hungry, then it wouldn't struggle or striving for anything is not cause any suffering. So if you kept on to cultivate the vipassana practice, is to see the truth of the body and mind of the life. That's the world subject to impermanent suffering and non-self. and then the craving will no longer arises. Once there's no craving, there will be no struggling and lead to no suffering of the mind. And once you passed away, then the mind wouldn't rooted in any birth again. There will be no consciousness that go to do rebirth again. There will be no such mind. The mind wouldn't sending out to seek sense doors. Even though you're still alive, the mind wouldn't do that. The mind wouldn't lost in these things. The mind is freed, awakened and knowing on itself. This is the path that we can go. We can get rid of the suffering within the mind if we can get rid of the suffering, if we get rid of the craving. To get rid of the craving, we have to see the truth of the life, that everything is not us, everything doesn't belong to us, nothing belongs to us. Then the craving will no longer arise. If there's no craving, there will be no struggling. If there's no struggling, then there will be no suffering, because the mind keep on struggling all day long. You have to keep on training till you can see that the mind is full of suffering. There's a lot of jobs for mind to do. And if you see this, you can let go. The mind is no longer suffering. This is the path towards the end of suffering. This is the answers why we should meditate and practice Dhamma. So now, from now on, you should be diligent in practicing Dhamma. I'm not sure how many people, how many guiding teachers. I think I can be helpful today. So whenever you have time, you have limited time actually. So be persistent at your practice and learning about yourself. All the guiding teachers will help you with learning the way to learn with yourself, the way to learn about yourself, learn the truth of the life. Once you understand the truth of the life, then there's no craving, no suffering. That should be enough for today. It's already 11:30. So I give you blessings. Be safe, and life is full of impermanence, whatever. Because the world outside is there's a lot of oil prices and very expensive and difficult to live in this world. A lot of problems comes at us. Even doing business is more difficult nowadays. So any problems that strikes you, it happens. It can happen anytime. If you train yourself well, then there will be less suffering. Keep on training and training, the suffering will be less and less. So be happy, everyone. Be safe and prosper in the Dhamma practice, everyone.